Hi, I'm Quincas and I'm a synth DIY guy. Welcome to today's video, which is a demo review of the WMD Kraken. For a little while now, WMD has been releasing these physical modeling percussion modules, and the Kraken is their version of a snare drum. This is a very advanced digital module with a lot of timbral possibilities and CV control over pretty much everything, and it's really fun and exciting. It sounds very much like an acoustic snare drum, and you can basically shape your snare drum however you want it. So let's have a look at the module. I have my Senso Morph drum pad triggering in here, right? I also have my expression pedal controlling the shell size, but let's remove that for now. We're only going to use the knobs for now, just so we get a sense for the timbres that you can get out of it, right? I'm even going to remove the velocity right now. There's the onboard button right here where you can trigger it. And check it out, if you trigger it short, you get a short sound. If you hold the button, you get a much longer decay. So it does respond to gates as well as triggers, right? It has two gate inputs. This is the head input right now, and this is the rim input over here, where you get more of a rim knock kind of a sound. If you trigger both of them together, which you can easily do using a multiple here and two little cables, you get what is commonly referred to as the rim shot, which is a snare hit, but you use the side of the stick, so you're actually hitting both the rim and the head like this. So that's the rim shot. Right? Let's remove the rim for now and just hear that snare head. So the first control you have is the shell control, and this refers to the size and material of the shell of the drum, right? So it can be metallic and large, or it can be wooden and small, all the way to a piccolo drum. You have a wide range there. Right there, that's something you can't do with a real snare drum, right? You can't change its size to taste. You'd have to have a large collection of very expensive drums to be able to come close to this kind of variation. The low tune is how you're tuning that lower head, because the snare drum has two heads, right? The top head where you strike, and the bottom head which resonates, and also where the snares themselves, which are these little wires, are touching. They make the buzzy sound, right? Here's the pitch control. That's like the top head. So between both of them is how you're tuning your snare drum, right? Let's get a little bit more volume here. See, I do have a little bit of reverb happening here. Just a smidge. The decay, when you hold it with a gate, you can't really feel it, but if you use a trigger, short trigger, that decay will really be felt. If you have a short decay, it'll be just a very short burst of sound, and if you leave the decay longer, you get more of that response like the gate signal, right? Overtone simulates the overtones, the harmonics that you get out of the drum heads. Jazz drummers, for example, will have a lot of overtones on their heads. They'll let it vibrate, they'll try to tune it really nicely and let the drum breathe. Whereas funk and rock players might use some of these sticky things that I put on my snare drum over here, or even like a t-shirt over it, or the classic, which is the wallet. Like, just take your leather wallet, put it right on the head, and you get that drier sound, right? If I take off all of these, I will get a lot more overtone, see? That ringing, That's what the overtones are. If I put these on, you don't get them anymore. So that's what you get here with the overtone control for the Kraken. You can really hear those overtones ring out. And they'll ring out more or less depending on how you have it tuned as well. Right, that's a lot of overtone right there. See? I'll turn it down, and that's deadened. Right, the snares is how loud and loose those snares are, right? Which are the, remember, the buzzy metal thing underneath the snare drum, right? So right now we have kind of a jazzy drum because it's got lots of overtones. And very loose and loud snares. And bring those down, rein them in, rein in the overtone. We start getting almost more like a Lindrum kind of a sound, like a sampled 80s dry and low kind of a snare drum sound. Now there's an accent input, and that will make it a little bit louder, right? Let me just. And that's intentionally subtle because you have a velocity input as well. So why don't we connect my expression pedal to that velocity input, and now we can go. Right? Let's get a little bit more snares. A little bit more overtone in there again. Tune this slightly higher and a little more snares. Of course, you have a CV control over all of these parameters. You have CV over shell, CV for low tune, for pitch, for decay. Velocity only has a CV input, same with accent, and then you have the head and rim gate inputs and the output of the module here. Really impressive how they managed to get this to sound so authentic, so real, so acoustic, which is really unique. Before, if you wanted to hear a nice acoustic sounding snare in Eurorack, you would have to use a sampler, and that limits you quite a bit. It won't respond the way that a real snare drum would respond. The only things you can do to it are change its decay and its pitch and maybe filter it, but that doesn't really mimic the way that a real drum would respond. So that's really nice. For me, this is a game changer. This is a new way to program drums in modular. Now, beyond these controls of the physical modeling itself, there are a few extra goodies here. One of them is the model for these snares, right? So right now we have one that is a digital noise. And this will be more like a sampler in the sense that it'll always sound the same. The digital noise will always sound the same whenever you hit it. Right? Now if I change it, and there's a switch to change it, if I change it to the second model here, that's the analog snare. This one will respond a little bit more like a human drummer in the sense that each hit will sound slightly different. The human drummer will not manage to always hit the snare at the exact same phase of its vibration, the exact same spot on the head. It'll come close, but there will always be a little bit of variation, and that's part of what makes it so cool to hear a real natural drummer play. So that's what you get here. Each hit is slightly different when you use the analog noise, right? And the third model then things get a little freaky. See, your pitch control now is much wider and more responsive, so you can get more unnatural sounding snares. So this is the pitch shifter mode. So by using the pitch knob now, you have much wider pitch control, and you can really come up with sounds that are quite different from a traditional snare, right? So you're not limited to real, authentic, acoustic sounding snare sounds, right? Let's go back to that first model. And then there's another switch. This switch is called the rec switch. And on the first position, nothing happens. It's just the physical modeling sound. But when I plug in a CV source to it, to the rec input, then you get this clipping. See? I'm using my foot controller here. Sounds pretty weird, very distorted. Of course, you can dose exactly how much of that clipping you want. Now, if I turn that switch to its middle position, this is a wave folder. You're applying a wave folder. Let's give it more delay, more overtones so you can really hear that. Less snares. And that's a fixed amount of wave folding, right? However, if I plug a cable into that rec input, and again I can control how much of that wave folding I want applied. Right? Put my foot down. Oh, nearly none. And as I move my foot upward, I get way more of that wave folding. And the last position of the switch, all the way to the right, gives you a bit reducer. So again, if I have nothing plugged into the rec input, you get a fixed amount of bit reducer. Right? But if I plug in my pedal again, I have a continuous control over the amount of bit reduction, or is that sample rate reduction? Actually, the manual says it's a distortion based on quantization error. So it's neither a bit reducer or a sample rate reducer. It's very cool, very digital and glitchy sounding. So yeah, that's the rec button, right? That's what it does. It wrecks the sound in different ways. Cool. So let's get that out of there. Let's put the rec switch back in its default position so we get that nice acoustic sounding snare drum sound again. Let's fine tune it to a sound that we like. A little bit less overtones here. Why don't I use my instrument interface here to mic up the snare drum and use it to trigger the Kraken while I control the shell parameter with my pedal. All right, and to finish off, let's make a beat. Let's make a beat using the black sequencer. The reason I use the black sequencer instead of the drum sequencer is because it has more modulation outputs that I can use to modulate the different parameters of the Kraken. So I can really tailor the velocity, the shell, the tuning, and everything else that I want with this. So right now I already have a beat going. Just a basic boom clack kind of a rhythm. Let's get that other gate number 4 output there, and we're gonna trigger the rim with that channel. So remember, when they're together you get that rim shot sound, right? Now this is just a rim knock right here. Let's go back to channel 3 and we'll program in that right there is a grace note, right? Now we want it to be a grace note. We can make it a roll into that note if we just use a ratchet here. See? Now I can use the velocity input. So I'm going to take the modulation of track number 4 here. I'm going to stick that into velocity here. Alright, and now we'll go into the mod page here and we're going to change it to a CV slide. Alright. Now we want this to be a loud hit right here. So I'm creating a ramp here so that that roll ramps up to the hit. Right? We want this to be loud too. Right? You can add another note there. Nice. Now we can also look, I put the decay short here. Set the decay really short. Now I can use modulation 3 here to control the decay, and that's right here. Is that decay? Or is it? Here's decay actually. Right. So we got these short notes, and then the last one lasts longer. Make this one nice. I can use one of the pitch outputs, about pitch 4 here, CV4, and we'll control the actual pitch of the drum. And I might as well just randomize that. That's 4, right? Magic CV. Very cool. Put it in the pitch shift one. Let's wreck it a little bit. Make it faster. randomize that shell parameter. I'll take modulation output 2 here, and we'll set that. We'll set that to be a LFO, and we'll synchronize it at a quarter or a 12th. There you go. And that's going to be the shell parameter, which is right here. Let's change that division a little bit. Randomize it for, instead of the sine wave, I use a sample and hold. And we make the division 1. Very cool. Endless, right? So I think that'll be it for today. Thanks for hanging out with me for this long. I hope you like the Kraken. And I hope you like the channel. Hit like, subscribe, comment below, all that stuff. See you soon. Stay noisy.